Right, I think we're live on screen. Um, I hope you're looking at the solar disc. Just message me if the audio's okay, because just set this up. Had a few problems with Windows. Can't understand why. Installing drivers at this time of day. Very unhelpful. Just tweaking the focus a little bit. Because we're looking directly at the sun, there is a lot of atmospheric distortion. But on that image there on screen now, you can just see the granularity of the surface. Hey Chris, afternoon mate. So yeah, this is the sun. Just going to go round. I've not got a dedicated solar camera. This is just my guide camera. Sorry, guide scope. And it's being used for things it was never designed for. Good, thanks for the audio check. Yeah, the reason the sun looks green is because of the Baader solar continuum filter. It's taking a small slice out the infrared spectrum, and as you can guess, it's in the green zone. I'm just trying to tweak it to get some more detail. So the focus is going to be in and out while I'm tweaking it. That's about the best I can get so far. The camera is a QHY 132E planetary camera, colour, but it's about 10 years old, so it's not cutting edge technology. It basically gets used on planets when I get the time. Right, let's have a look around, see if we can pick out any. And because it's not got very good reactions to speed, I have to keep tweaking the exposure. And so far, I've only been on a few minutes, I've not spotted any sunspots or anything. I don't have the resolution to capture along the edge for the coronal mass ejections. However, it is well capable of picking up the sunspots if they're there. We're also using a 3x Barlow on the camera. So we're actually zoomed in quite a lot. I've got a 2 power to zoom out a little bit, and I've also got a 5 to get in really, really close. And the other thing, of course, hay fever's hammering me again today. There are also a few dust particles on the sensor of the camera. They're fixed, they don't move, so it'll be easy to distinguish those from anything that is actually happening on the sun. I decided to go for the 3 power Barlow rather than the 5 because it's got a slightly wider view, and if there's anything active on there, it will give us a better chance of picking it up. And I could also always swap over to the 5 power, like there's something just here, a couple of tiny marks. I could also always switch over to the 5 power if I find something interesting and wanted to have a closer look. There's a potential target if we swapped over. It's difficult to see. You can see the effects of the wind blowing across the front of the scope. This is not what would be classed as an ideal configuration for solar viewing, because the big scope would be adding to the movement, so that would be affecting the stability. Also, the big scope will be reflecting a lot of heat across the front of the 90mm, the planetary camera and scope that we're using to capture the images. So all in all, oh yeah, it is quite large. All in all, it's like I say, it's not the ideal configuration for solar imaging. But it was this setup that I actually captured Mercury transiting the surface of the sun. And at some point I will be getting a better camera, planetary camera. I think it's not very active on there, so there's not much to look at with my equipment. I don't know if you can see the texture coming through there. Yes, the actual scope we're using, just go back to There's definitely a texture that you can see. And that's about as fine as I can tune it. So if I expose it too much, it burns out all the detail. So I think 9 milliseconds is about the sweet spot. A dedicated solar scope, just a simple 40mm one, can cost many thousands of pounds, and the scope I'm actually using to do this, I think, cost about £250, and it was only bought for the use as a guide scope. So there's a gulf of difference between the performance of the camera with this scope and a dedicated solar scope. That little thing there is a dust particle on the sensor. Same as that, same as that. So the sensor could really do with a little bit of TLC. I'm surprised how stable we are, because there's just a little bit of breeze out there. And we're actually capturing at 25 frames per second. Let's see if I can just change the resolution and get a little faster capture rate. Right, let's have a look at this. Right, this might be a slightly smaller screen, but it's a lot faster on the capture rate. There, look. That has actually brought in a little bit more detail, although the screen's smaller. I think it's all dependent on the frames per second. And because this camera is last year's technology, it is relatively slow compared to the modern stuff. But with a faster frame rate, we seem to be picking out a little bit more detail. and that's at 200% zoom. I think that's a little bit too much. Drop the zoom down a little bit, back to 100%. Yeah, I think the planetary camera is going higher on the wish list for birthday time. Tweak the focus a little bit. The unfortunate thing is I'm not able to pick any sunspots up today. We definitely need the frames per second to pick any meaningful detail out of the surface. Bring that up there, look. Yeah, it's very difficult. A true solar scope could almost fit in your pocket because it doesn't need to have a large object lens, because you can't get anything much brighter than the sun to look at. So a very small object lens is well adequate. Right, defocus, now refocusing again. So unfortunately for a solar viewing afternoon, there's not a lot to view. Also, I don't have a filter wheel on this scope. This bottom bottom left hand corner tells you what frames per second we're running at to get this image. Currently it's in the 85 to 87 frames per second. So that shows you the speed of the equipment we need to be running. Yeah, you need to look at Barda filter paper if you want to make a filter for your camera, especially if you're going to look at the solar disc. And I don't think digital zoom will do you many favours. Just trying to find some settings that work. I'll see if I can find you a link to the Barda solar film. There you go, that's what you need. Just you need to create a holder to go across the main object lens, and that will reduce 99.9% of the intensity, but still leave you enough to work with for capturing images. Right, drop back down to 25 frames per second. I could take that continuum filter out, but the camera's not got a fast enough response time to cope with the higher intensity of light. So this is what we're stuck with at the moment. And the wind. It is picking up a lot of the granularity, but the focus is varying with the thermals coming through. So the heat of the sun, although we can't avoid it, is having quite a negative effect on the image. And no matter how fine I tweak the focus, I mean that's brought up a lot more detail in that area just here. I think there's a little bit of surface detail there, something there. And the wind's picking up, of course. Yeah, there's a bit of something there. I don't have the resolution to pull it out though. I've just had a friend request pop up from a Mr. Alexander. Would that happen to be anybody watching this stream? Oh, blimey, to switch Facebook on, I've got thousands of messages waiting for me. Turn away for 5 seconds and look what happens. Drop that down a little bit. Yeah, there's something there, but I just can't pull that out. I could spend forever and a day wishing for all the equipment that I'd want to do this. and then I'd spend the rest of the time wishing for the weather that I could use it on. Right. What I might do, and just have a quick look at Stellarium, because I do believe Uranus is not far away from where we are now. Yeah, they're all pretty close, but Uranus is Mag 5. I don't think we'll get that in daylight. Mercury might, 40 degrees. Right, I might have a flick over to Mercury. We're a bit close to the sun, so I'd have to keep the solar filter on for now. Right, let me just try and locate the centre just to synchronise. I'm just going to take a wild guess at that. Right, I'm just swinging across to where I think Mercury should be. And I'm just going to whack the exposure right up, see if we can pull Mercury out of the murk. Right, bear with me. I'm just going to take the white light filter off and see if we can find Mercury. Just bear with me a second. Wow. I think I need to tweak that down a little bit. we're pointing a little bit close to the sun. So I think we could be getting... Right, let's put... just trying to find an approach. There it is, just to the right of the screen, look. Mercury. Just centralise it a little bit. That there is Mercury, although we've got another filter on there. See if I can focus it down a little bit. And we're not exactly using a high power, high magnification scope. That blob floating about in the middle of that green is Mercury. Let me just synchronise on that, because the moon's not far away. I could actually swap over. I could actually swap over onto the main tube, but the main tube is awfully close to the sun, so whatever camera's on end of that mirror is going to get hammered. I think the moon is 100% eclipsed at the minute, but let's go swing over and have a look at it anyway. Right, believe it or not, under that green mask now is the moon. Let's see if I can I know it looks weird, but sometimes you can drag the moon out of nowhere. Now I really would have to take that filter off to pull it out. Just trying to find an edge. Yeah, I can see it, but all you'll see on your screen is a lighter coloured mass. On my screen now that's coming through as grey. I'm not touching the exposure. Let's see if I can just tweak the focus a little bit. See if we can find anything with focusing. No, I can't see anything coming through on this. Hey Barrett. You've just missed out. We've just been and had a look at Mercury through the murky green filter. And I'm actually on, if I can bring up the... I just flew across to the sun again. Oh shit. Just probably burnt out my sensor. I forgot to put the filter back on. Bear with me, I'll go and stick the filter back over it. Right, I think I was lucky there and I dodged a bullet. Right, I just need to focus again. In more ways than one. Because what I did there, I went from Mercury back to the sun without replacing the solar filter, which is an absolute disaster waiting to happen. Right, that's the edge of the solar disk. I'm just going to try and walk up the exposure till we get a comfortable level where we can pick out the detail. Because it's a balancing act, this. Right, there we go. Just try and tweak up a little bit more. If you go too much, it overpowers everything, and you see a lot less. Right, this is a quick look around the edges of the solar disc, see if we can pick anything out. I'm not sure if you can see any of the surface granularity from where you are on your screens, but on mine I can see a little bit of surface detail. Just going to up the exposure one notch too much. Well, I'm in the Midlands, United Kingdom, and the effects from local hospital, talking to some of the nurses, I think we've not had it as bad as what some parts of the country have. I work in a supermarket, so I get to talk to a lot of people, and so far in the Midlands we're coping reasonable. Yeah, we've not had no testing around here in the Midlands either. Well, I don't know of anybody personally that's been tested. I was off work a couple of weeks ago with what I assume was a summer cold. Some of the symptoms were similar to the coronavirus: temperature, coughing, um, restless, and it passed. I had to have a week off work just to be on the safe side, and my daughter's been forced to have 2 weeks off work just to be on the safe side. But I still maintain that it was a summer cold. And as you can see on the solar disc, there's not very much activity that I can see with my equipment here. I'm going to give my daughter a shout, see if she's in chair for making a cup of tea. I'm just trying a few different settings, see if we can pull any extra detail out. Right, I've been around the disc twice now, and I still can't find much activity that this kit can pick out. We're just about on the limits of what we can do with this kit. Although we can see some activity on the surface, we don't have the capability with what filters I've got to hand to bring anything meaningful out of it. So you can see a lot of granularity in this area. And for a scope that was bought as a guide scope, I don't think it's doing too bad. And I think it's an 11-year-old camera that we're using. And we're running at 24 frames per second. Now I think once you've had the virus, your body builds up a natural immunity to it, so you can't get reinfected. But you can still be a carrier. It would be absolutely awesome now if we had a satellite go across front to image. Welcome to the stream, all the newcomers that have appeared. As you can see, we're just looking at a little bit of solar activity, or trying to find that bit of solar activity. The equipment today is a 90mm refractor with a 600mm focal length. The camera is a QHY 132E planetary camera, and we're using a green solar continuum filter behind a Barda film white light filter. And our location is central UK. Although so far we've seen very little of any activity around it at the moment. I'm just going to change the resolution of the camera down to 640 by 480, and that should speed up the frame rate. And with a faster frame rate we should pick up a little bit more detail. And just tweak the focus a little bit. With a faster update on screen we should be able to pick up a little bit more granularity. There you go. I've brought a little bit more, although the view is smaller, it's refreshing faster, so you can pick out just that little bit extra detail. We're currently running at about 85 to 87 frames per second. For an 11-year-old camera, it's not too bad. And of course there's a bit of breeze picking up. I don't quite have the versatility of this software to drag that to the centre screen. Right, let's just go back to the larger area. There we go. The focus is not too far out because we can still see a little bit of the granularity on the surface there. but we've dropped right back down to 23, 24 frames per second, so it won't be as crisp. I'll just leave that view there for a second. I'm just going to go and stick kettle on. Right, that's got food and liquid sustenance organised. What have I missed? Oh, hang on a minute, it's my stream. Right, what have I missed? Well, the tracking seems to be pretty much spot on, because it's exactly where I left it about a minute and a half ago. And we're still picking up detail on the actual surface. And having seen this, I think I've decided it's going to be a planetary camera for my retirement treat in July. Because I think this one is just about seeing the best of its years already. It still works, but there are better options out there these days. I shall leave that on screen for a few minutes, let that every time you track and slew, it induces movement on the whole setup. If I could just take off the big scope and just have this 90mm on the mount, there'd be none of the movement whatsoever. It'd be a lot more solid of an image. But taking the main scope off and just mounting the small one is quite a major undertaking. There goes the magic microwave Morse code signal saying food's cooked. Modern technology, eh? What would we do without it? Right, let me just drop that exposure down a fraction. Thank you, sweetheart. And my gorgeous daughter's feeding me yet again. Right, I don't think we're going to be able to find much out here today, and it means I've got to refocus everything for guiding for this evening if I'm going to do a stream again this evening. Here we go. Is everybody going to be on tonight for another follow-up on the Comet? And did everybody who looked for the moon map manage to download a copy? Awesome, awesome. Yep, I shall be on again this evening from 9 o'clock till about 11:15 because I've got an early shift in the morning. So I won't be as late as this morning. I think it was about 2 o'clock when I got to bed this morning. And I've not stacked any of the images that we've captured. So I'm going to have a mountain of data to work through when I do get time to settle down in front of the computer. And I might actually have a go at this creating a video malarkey and put something together about what we've actually seen. Because as you can see at the moment, the sun, as viewed with my equipment, is very quiet. Not a lot to look at. Awesome, awesome. I think I'm going to keep out over here in the UK to 1433. Right now, 1433. I'm going to keep an eye out on some of my astro sites and see if I can find when the ISS crosses the surface of the sun, transits the sun, so I can be ready and try and get some images as it crosses. I think that might be a challenge at some point. There we go. We'll just go around the perimeter one more time. and then I'm going to call it an afternoon and have a look at getting everything ready for this evening. So I'm not exactly sure what you can actually see on your screen, but I can see granularity within the green surface area. And I do believe I'm streaming at 1080p. And there we go, right back at the beginning. Go straight across the middle. Have a look, see if we can pick anything out. On a personal note on this, I'm quite happy with how the equipment's tracking. Because it's been quite a while since I've done any solar work, and just leave it locked onto a target and it seems quite stable. It doesn't move, it doesn't drift, so I'm quite happy with that. Right. So I'm going to call it a day at that, and have a bit of downtime, get everything set up for this evening. So I think the start time for this evening will be between 8:30 and 9:30 UK time, and I think the stream will carry on till around 11 o'clock ish. Might be a little bit after that. All depends on the data we start capturing and what we're actually looking at. So it's nice to have you all along again. I think we've developed a nice regular crew coming up all the time. And for anybody else who was watching, please like and subscribe. Let me know you're out there, leave a message. And if you're interested, we'll be streaming again this evening. So nice to see everybody again. Take care of yourselves, and I look forward to seeing you